Roselli Northern supports upstate New York construction with over 400 employees, 250 trucks, 9 ready-mix plants, 4 blacktop plants, and 40 aggregate mines. But their most important number is your bottom line. Contact them today to see why Roselli Northern has been the choice for contractors and project managers across upstate New York since 1929.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, New York Baseball Podcast. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you. Remote today, recording here on Thursday morning. You guys will be seeing this on Friday and listening to it on Friday. Kyle, a lot to get to here. It's been an interesting 7 days for really both of these teams, right? The Mets. Um, Not to, I guess, lean too much into the meme, but via the power of Grimace has ridden a now 7-1. They lost the game Wednesday night in Texas to the Rangers. A nice ride there for them. For the Yankees, it hasn't been quite as good, and I think that's where I actually want to start today. Um, this team has become, I wouldn't say quietly banged up, but it's been a rough, really 5 days for the Yankees. And although I suppose two of the injuries came before the Rizzo injury, Anthony Rizzo's fracture in his right arm, I guess was really kind of the catalyst to this all Sunday night.
Yeah, it was definitely wasn't a good weekend in Boston. Um, the pitching struggles lately, especially the bullpen. I would say actually only the bullpen has been the reason for it. And then yeah, seeing Rizzo go down, who, was already struggling a lot at the plate, but you still don't like to see a veteran guy like that go down. So yeah, just the last week hasn't been too fun. But with the start that they had, you take the last week because no one expected what they've done so far.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the beauty about getting the jump that they did, like you said, Kyle, right? The only negative, as I guess, would be like, and obviously we're kind of seeing it play out with this series against Baltimore midweek this week, where Baltimore's more or less been right there the whole time, right? I mean, they entered the series 2.5 back. Now they are they weren't on the doorstep. They're pretty much in the house now, I would say. Uh, it's tough. And then you mentioned the bullpen, and we saw, Ian Hamilton go down rotation wise. And although it was probably, I guess, gonna be Poteet taking um taking, I guess, the quote unquote loss and Garrett Cole re-entering the rotation. You see Cody Poteet go down as well. And it's just one of those things where um, it's a little bit, I guess, like the past couple of years. I didn't really see anything until the news came out about them going on the IL that those two guys were hurt in some way.
Yeah, the Hamilton stuff was definitely hidden, and then he ended up telling reporters that, he felt something in Kansas City, which was last week, and of course heard nothing about it. And then it popped up again in Boston, and you could tell because his last 7 games he had over a 6 ERA, and that's not what we saw from him in the beginning of the year or last year. So you figured something may have been wrong. Um, it is a loss, especially now that, you can see the bullpen is struggling and Tommy Canley's had his struggles, which sucks. And Clay Holmes last 3, 4 games hasn't been good. So yeah, they have too many lefties, in my opinion, in the bullpen right now. And, I know you're going to get to the news, but they have a third lefty again in the bullpen. It's like, I don't understand rolling with 3 lefties, especially with one of them that has really struggled. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, we'll get to that news in just another second here because lastly, I guess in terms of the banged up, Yankee portion of this is Aaron Judge gets beamed this opening game of the Baltimore series on Tuesday night. Um, Remained in the game more or less, I guess, to just run the bases and then came out, um, which has caused now this whole entire. I don't know what to make of this back and forth. I don't know if it's worth kind of talking about. I know uh, Baltimore got beamed at least twice last night off the top of my head, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to make of all of at least the back and forth on that. I know Verdugo was obviously was standing up for his captain, which I certainly commend, but it's just one of those things where it's like I don't know if any of these guys really intentionally go out there to bean anybody anymore in that sense. But here nor there, obviously, Judge, the main thing comes back. All the scans and X-rays were negative, so he's rolling. They called it day to day. I don't know if we'll see him today on Thursday when we're recording, or if it's going to be a weekend deal. But um, it's just one of those things where it's a tough pill to swallow. You see Trent Grisham get some run. Jahmai Jones got a little bit of run late in the game Wednesday night. So kind of a mishmash of guys kind of filling in for Judge at the moment.
Yeah, in that moment, if you're a Yankee fan or a player, you're definitely pissed. But I agree, it wasn't intentional. You could see it was a sinker that just ran inside to lead off the third inning. And obviously we've seen Judge get hit there before and actually break a bone. So in that moment, you're thinking, man, that was a fastball right to his hand again. This is not going to be good. And I know I was worried, but I'm glad we heard after the game right away. We didn't have to wait another day to find out if he was okay. And yeah, it's honestly Trent Grisham. It's not. I mean, what is he? He has 3 hits as a Yankee, 2 home runs, and
Uh-huh.
he hasn't done much. And it's I don't know. And Jahmai Jones had 3 at bats last night, struck out looking to end the game. Came up in a big spot in the eighth and lined out. Um, yeah, it sucks seeing those guys have to play because they haven't done much for the team.
Yeah, I mean it's something that we talked about on here a couple different times through the season already, where it's like, yeah, they have the surplus of the outfield, but their de facto fourth guy needs improvement in that spot. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. I got worried last night too. I know this is a bit of a side session, but when Verdugo made that catch and crashed into the wall, I got worried there for a second because he did kind of look like as we would say, lost his bearings a little bit. But he appeared no worse for wear, I guess, which certainly a dodge bullet for the Yankees. Yeah, let's get into that little bit of a late breaking news here at this time of recording. I know when everybody sees and listens to this, it will be a day or so on, but Yankees bringing on Tim Hill, free agent left-handed reliever, started the year with the White Sox, DFA'd. Um, Over a I think it's a 5.73 ERA on the season. His K to walk ratio is, I think, 1 to 1.13 or something like that. It's not great. This is a guy though who past couple of years has kind of become a revelation of sorts with the Padres and the Royals. Things just didn't go right in Chicago, which I think as baseball fans we recognize is probably pretty standard at the moment with the White Sox. But either way, you alluded to Kyle. I don't mind the baseline thought on this in the sense that you're bringing a veteran who knows how to be a professional, probably knows what this honestly opportunity for him is going to be. I just don't understand having a third lefty now in the bullpen. I'm with you there. I don't know where the fit exactly is outside of just like veteran presence.
Yeah, it's definitely odd, and they didn't do this last year at all. And at times, Wandy, not all the time, but at times there were times where Wandy was the only one in the bullpen, left-handed wise. And then they did have Nick Ramirez at times come up too. But going with three now, I know Baltimore does have quite a bit of lefties. but you only have one game left against them. So I don't understand the thinking. And, they are kind of a little thin today because Cole was only able to give them um 4 innings. So I don't know. I don't know about the decision, and Tim Hill's stats, like you said, aren't really good at all. He he does have the highest ground ball percentage though. So I guess that's something that the Yankees do like. And I guess, Michael Tonkin figured it out in New York, so why can't Tim Hill? Matt Blake, can he do his thing again? Um, I know it takes more than just Matt Blake, but it just seems like Matt Blake does a really good job at turning pitchers that aren't good into, solid arms.
Yeah, I tried to run through quick while you were talking there, Kyle, on Twitter, and I couldn't even find anything if he was going to necessarily be even available tonight, even. And you mentioned, or well, later on this afternoon, but you mentioned Kyle, and it's spot on. I mean, I think it was, I don't want to say expected. You had to probably be willing to assume that because Cole's on a pitch count still, that he may not be getting long into the game as much as they had hoped. But yeah, that being said, it ended up being a bit of a perfect storm scenario where the game obviously goes into extra innings last night on Wednesday, and they use quite a bit of arms in the bullpen too. And the other thing too that I wanted to mention, it's not like we obviously know this, right? Like they're the three batter rule now kind of takes a lot of just the lefty lefty matchup out of hand. So I I don't know. It's interesting. I did see one tweet though when I was looking at it. I kind of forgot, but I guess the Yankees and Tim Hill were had some sort of mutual interest when he was a free agent back in 2019. And I guess the joke around now is it's a lot like how, Cole, Verdugo, Canely 3 times over, stuff like that kind of comes all the way back around the way. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and if you were looking for a veteran right-handed reliever, probably would have been a trade scenario. So I guess I'm trying to figure out the logic here, and I just can't quite find it besides veteran presence.
Yeah, I was a little shocked waking up seeing it. I thought because they optioned what's his name? The lefty that was on the mound in the 10th last night. I can't say his name. What is his name?
Mashevitz?
Yes. Um, they optioned him last night. So I figured they were gonna bring up like Jake Cousins or um what was the other arm I was thinking? Just someone else from Scranton. And then
Right.
I see this news and I'm like, wow, another lefty makes zero sense to me.
I mean, I'm guessing unless they just kind of, I mean, Hill is in his mid 30s. I doubt he has options
Yeah,
unless they plan on using him for depth after, the next couple weeks, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know. Um, I think one thing I want to touch on here before we kind of look ahead here a little bit more, we kind of saw, and it's something that I half tongue in cheek said at the announcement of this hire when the Yankees brought him on, but going back to Tuesday, we saw Brad Ausmus in his first, I guess, kind of interim quote unquote manager role of sort. Um, and obviously got highlighted by when Judge got plunked. But what'd you make of his, I guess, what 6 innings or so of or no 5 innings of managerial debut with the Yankees?
well, I could tell he was working hard. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, they jumped out to a lead and they had shut out the Orioles through 6 before Boone got there. Well, it's 5.5. So yeah, I mean, I thought he did a good job, but they were mentioning on the broadcast because I think Joe Girardi was like, "Does Brad get the win since he started?"
Right.
And no, they credited to Aaron Boone still. So they were joking around. You could see Boone kind of laughing when he came up in the dugout because Boone probably said something about like, how'd you do? And just a cool moment. But yeah, it was a good start to the series. And last night was tough because, you battle back like that and you have a lot of opportunities to, with runners in scoring position, you don't deliver. It's tough. And then if they don't win today, it's really tough because you can't lose 2 series to Baltimore already. They're already what is it? 10 and 11 against the American League
Mhm.
East, and they're 41 and 14 against everyone else.
Yeah,
So they got to start taking care of the AL East.
kind of a similar situation as the past couple of years in a way.
Hmm.
So, yeah, looking ahead here, we got obviously we're recording this, and as I mentioned a couple times, by the time this comes out, this Baltimore series is already going to be in the rearview mirror. Um, then we have Atlanta here this weekend for the Yankees, Kyle, and Bronx. And then by the time we get to talking again next week, 2 games set on the road, although I guess not really because the guys will probably be able to sleep at least in their own beds for at least a couple of the nights. A 2 game set against the Mets in Queens. So um, this is a interesting Atlanta team to say the least. Um, I don't know what to fully expect from this series. Atlanta's got a lot going on for a team that's regarded as being one of the best in the big leagues. They are really banged up. Their pitching staff is a maze of prospects and journeymen at the moment. And yet they're making it work for the most part. So I'd love to say that, like, yeah, I believe the Yankees can get 2 of 3 there. I just don't know. Atlanta seems to still be getting it done with what they got and the pieces they got. Um, I guess we'll save the Mets stuff for when we get to the Mets here in a second, only because there's no need to, I guess, rehash it out twice. But um, that's just kind of my vibe on this Atlanta series in a way where it's like ideally 2 of 3, but like I just don't think I have the confidence to actually say it.
Yeah, and they got Chris Sale, Max Fried, and Charlie Morton going, which, they all have pretty solid ERAs. I mean, Chris Sale has a really good ERA under 3, so it's going to be tough for the offense. Yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting series. Just hoping it's going to be another good one. Sucks that Acuna isn't in it. But I don't know. I hate to even make a prediction because I don't know, but I'll say 2 of 3, but I can honestly see them also losing because the Braves are a good team. They're just, they lost Acuna and they've been a little inconsistent lately, but a lot of really good hitters and some good pitchers.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things where they're making it work still and they're getting it done. And I I don't know. That's why I'm kind of frightened of the series in a way. Like I can really see the Yankees taking at least a couple losses in it, you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's transition over to the Mets. Kind of mentioned off the top. Um, and it shouldn't be lost. I know it's easy to do it because, well, it's the internet and we enjoy having fun with it. But the power of Grimace at 7-1, a 7 game win streak, their longest in a couple seasons, going back to 2022 for the Mets. Um, I go back to something I said a couple weeks ago. You could tell me anything with that team, and I'd believe it at this point, just because the way that team is. And they find themselves now still under 500. You brought that up in a group chat the other day, Kyle, and it's just one of those things where it's we kind of mentioned it a little bit with the Yankees, right? Where it's like, okay, you can kind of take these lumps a little bit right now because of the start you got. And then you have kind of the opposite going on, although it's a positive note for the Mets, but you have the opposite going on where it's like they've dug themselves so much of a hole here to start the year that now they get on this nice run that they've been on, and it just really is only like a couple drops in the pan and nothing more.
Yeah, they dug themselves in quite a hole in winning 7 in a row, 11 of 13. Still wasn't enough to get them to 500. And then, they lose last night, which, shouldn't be a big deal because you took the first 2 in Texas. And like we just said, you just won 7 in a row. But it kind of is because now they go back to 3 games under 500. And, they face a Cubs team this weekend. So, that's why people got to understand that even games in April matter.
Mhm.
And I guess if you want to be positive, you can say, all right, well, look at the wild card standings. They're only 1 game out, which is absolutely insane. But then you look and they're surrounded by 10 total teams. There's 10 teams within, each other about like a game and a half. And then, you get the Rockies who are 10 and a half out. But it's going to be quite a fight. And you look now and a team that's under 500, which is the Nationals, they have the third wild card.
Yeah.
So the Mets do have a shot. There's a lot of bad teams here in this bunch that if they just, play 500 ball, maybe a little above it, they're going to be in this come August.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like you look at it, and you look at just like the Cubs, for example, in the series come up, they're 36 and 39. They're just a game behind the Mets. Obviously, one of those teams that you mentioned, Kyle. But I don't know if it's more indicative of the Mets' run so far in the past week, or more indicative of just how maybe lackluster the National League has kind of been as a whole this year in a way.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the NL Central is kind of the perfect encapsulation of it. And that was a division I personally had pretty high regarded going into this year. But that's that portion of it's a little bit here nor there. But yeah, it's been a like I said, I think overall this is really just kind of what the Mets needed. We've been doing a lot of doom and gloom talk with them, obviously the past couple weeks, and justifiably so. Um, I know for you, Kyle, it's more all year, and you were pretty much spot on. uh, I guess the whatever you want to call it, and me just really figured with the talent they had, and still do, right? That really the wild card is still possible. I understand it's under 500 and it's not whatever, but um, look, it's one of those things. I think we just saw it kind of with the NBA in a way, even though it was a lackluster NBA Finals, very much so. All you need is the opportunity, right? I mean, I don't think me or you, Kyle, because we both pay attention to basketball, obviously. I don't think me or you are really probably bulk majority of NBA fans were probably sitting and even January going like, yeah, that Dallas Mavericks team's going to be the Western Conference,
Yeah.
finalists. So, I it's just one of those things where you get in there and anything can happen. Um, one thing for the Mets too here, and it's kind of it's one of those vibes thing. I kind of want to go back to something I talked about 2 weeks ago, and I've talked about probably a couple of times I know here and there in the past couple of years with them. I know we mentioned Grimace obviously a little bit already here. We aren't going to get in depth on that. Um, but they had like the mariachi band over the weekend, right? Doing Higher by Creed. I don't know. I don't know if something clicked, whether it's front office, marketing, clubhouse, whatever, who's kind of run with it at this point. But I mentioned it a little bit last week, and I think I want to double down on it this week. There is something very clearly, visibly different in that clubhouse in a positive manner. Um, I go back to something I talked about 2 weeks ago when we were talking like about the Jorge Lopez incident and everything like that. It was very clear to me that there was no voice for that dugout, and you know something culturally had to change. You're not going to fully change it over in 2 weeks. I'm not dumb. I'm aware that it needs to be built and grown over time, but maybe it was just so bad that this little incremental stuff is just so visible, and and I mean kudos for changing it around, but like damn, was it really that bad that even like we were maybe blind to it? Like it's crazy to me that if it's small incremental stuff that we're noticing and making these big differences, I'm frightened to know about how actually bad it might have been in that clubhouse.
Yeah, there definitely is a different vibe. I don't know what it is either that might have clicked, but they're also finally getting offense and consistent offense from the hitters that we've mentioned that are supposed to be, producing for them and are veteran players. You look at like Brandon Nimmo, 333 over the last 15 games. I mean, finally, JD Martinez has, been doing his thing since he was activated, so can't really have much of a complaint with him. And then Pete Alonso, is hitting for average again, which is good. And Lindor moved him to leadoff, and he's been producing. Um, Starling Marte, like, and having Francisco Alvarez back too is huge. They seem to just do everything better with him in the lineup, and I think there was like some record out there that like they've won 18 of his last 20 starts, which is crazy. So yeah, there's something that's different about the team, and their pitching still a struggle. I mean, Severino gave up 6 the other night, but when you have an offense that can, bail you out and produce, sometimes it's okay for the pitching to struggle a little bit. So yeah, it's good times for the Mets. I know like Frank is happy, you see his videos on Twitter and whatever, but again, it's early and we just saw, they can go on a bad streak again. So, this is nice, but let's see it keep, going.
Yeah, and I mean they have a pretty good opportunity this weekend with being in Chicago. This is a Cubs team that um all of a sudden the past week or so I've seen a lot of, not a lot, but definitely a handful of articles come out about is it time to blow up this Cubs team? And I'm just like, as if that shouldn't have been done in the off season if you were going to do it, type thing. But yeah, I mean, obviously, a day game Friday in Wrigley Field for Friday, same on Saturday, and then Sunday night they're on Sunday Night Baseball. Uh, Katana against Imagana on Friday. Got Mago going Saturday for the Mets, and then Peterson Sunday night. I kind of like the Mets' chances there to keep it going. I don't know if they sweep the Cubs. That Friday game for me is the big sticking point at the moment, just because of how good Shota has been all year. I think the Mets get 2 or 3 though against the Cubs. I feel like I can confidently say that. That being said, they'll probably come back around and bite me in the butt, but so be it. That won't be the first time and it won't be the last.
Yeah. I just think because it's gone so well, they're, and I don't know, I just maybe only see them winning one game, which, wouldn't be great, but they've just won so much that as a team, you can't just keep winning at the clip they're winning at 11 of 13. I mean,
Uh-huh.
even the Yankees aren't 11-2 in their last 13 games, and they have the best record in the league. So it's so hard to do what they just did consistently. So they're due for, a series like that. So I just think that's coming.
And could it be coming against, we mentioned, and we'll do it here, the Yankee series. It's 2 game set in Queens, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Um, you know, both teams will be coming off an off day on that Monday. Pitching matchups obviously are still way too quote unquote far out to really have nailed down, but um, I could see that just simply being a split 2 game series gets kind of weird. And for the Mets, it's a little bit different. The Yankees will just be coming off of one day off. The Mets will have today Thursday off. They're off Monday, and then they're off that Thursday after as well after the 2 game set. Now that leads into a run of, let's see, 7, 14, 15 straight days of games going into the All-Star break for the Mets because of it. But um, just one of those things where the Mets in that 2 game stretch, they want to do what we call the funniest thing ever, could just really just try and railroad as best they can. And it's baseball. We know it's possible. So I think they split though that series. It's just one of those things, 2 games. Both teams probably get one and move on.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, those obviously Subway series are always great. Severino's lined up to pitch one of them, which is even more funny.
I think for the Mets, Katana would have to be the other one, or no, Mania would have to be the other one, right?
Yeah, and wait, let's see.
Suppose for the Yankees, it would have to be what, Cole and
Garrett's lined up for one of them.
yeah, Cole and then Cortez.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting and fun. I don't know. I guess because this is tough. Yankees win both.
Yeah, it's baseball. Look, I wouldn't be surprised either side of the token here. So, let's touch on the AAA teams here really quick, Kyle, before we get out of here. Unfortunately, Wednesday night. Look, it's a numbers game, and you get to the end of the halves of the seasons here with AAA. Omaha secured it. Syracuse couldn't make enough inroads. They were still 4.5 back, and with there only being 4 games remaining in the first half of the season, they just couldn't get there, obviously, in time. So Omaha is going to get the International League first half championship. They just had an absurd first half of the year out there in the IL West, so they get that. As for Syracuse, they're also playing Rochester over in Syracuse this week. Um, the main news for I guess really either of those 2 teams in my mind, Dylan Cruz one of the top prospects, I believe number 2 technically in the national pipeline, officially joined Rochester this week. Yeah, I know he already has a home run for the Red Wings. He had it last night on Wednesday. So things looking up in Rochester. That's going to be a really super fun team the second half of the year if they're able to keep everybody together. James Wood, obviously Dylan Cruz, Blankenhorn has had a really good year as well so far. Darren Baker's done really well. This is a fun Rochester team that we got up in the 5A5.
Yeah, it's disappointing, like you said, that the Syracuse Mets are eliminated because, man, what a first half they had. Completely different since we've, done this podcast. There a lot of losing actually between both teams over the last few years. So, seeing both teams above 500, even though they are eliminated, is good to see, and lots of exciting players. I know there's been players we've talked about again in the past years, but it just seems like these teams are different, more excitement, more prospects to follow. And yeah, second half's going to be good to watch.
Yeah, Syracuse, let me double check here. Yeah, they're on the road at Buffalo next week. Rochester returns home. They're playing the Indianapolis Indians, Pittsburgh's AAA club, next week at home in Rochester. Nothing really of note for Syracuse with their roster. I mentioned uh, obviously the Met or the Red Wings rather with Dylan Cruz. Couple of things though to note there. Robert Gesellman was granted his release, as was TJ Zuck for Rochester. So couple of those veteran guys taking their outs as they are contractually obligated to do.
And the biggest news is that Chick-fil-A is coming to MBT Bank Stadium.
I saw that. Yeah, they'll have what I forget what they called it, but it's gonna be like one of those free stands out in the
Yeah,
concourse. So uh, I'm
small.
I'm not opposed. I mean, I know I prefer hot dogs still when I go to a ballpark, or I guess in the case of Rochester, a plate. But you know, I'm not opposed to Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches. I can tell you that much.
Yep, huge news.
So it's good chicken, the Lord's chicken, as they say. So we'll be back at it regularly next Thursday as well, everybody. Note of that, obviously no show the week after. It's July 4th. I will be out of state. Kyle, don't know what you got going on, but I would assume that the last thing on your mind would be in the office doing a podcast, obviously. So just a little programming note for a couple weeks down the line.
Well, yeah, you're right, but I'll be covering the game at 1 o'clock against the Reds.
That's
So
true.
after that, though, I'll be hanging out for the night. So
Exactly.
yeah,
See.
I wouldn't want.
So that will do it for Concrete Jungle for today, everybody. Appreciate everybody for listening and tuning in, and we will talk again next week.